In this video, we're going to look at the user interface for the Dryer Master DM100. We're going to go through some of the basic settings and the different menus that are involved. Now, in addition to the information in this video, there are two other videos that go into more detail on two key topics. One is moisture calibration, so how to calibrate the moisture sensor. The other one is state logic control, what it is and how it works with the DM100. You can find those videos on our website at dryermaster.com. Click on the support tab and look for the videos line and click on that and the videos will be on that page. Now let's look at overall at the main screen and what's available in terms of information. So we have the grain temperature of the grain coming out of the dryer, the grain moisture, and the discharge rate that you're running the dryer at. We can also see that the mode is auto and the product we're drying is corn. Now this information here relates to state logic control and it only comes into play when you're in auto mode. Okay. Because the moisture 15.3 is between the upper and the lower bands, that's why we're in this green band and that's why we're running at a speed of 50. Now in auto mode, the DM100 is sending a speed to the dryer and that's what it runs at. Now we can also go to manual mode. And in manual mode, you can make changes to the speed of the dryer from this panel without having to go out to the dryer panel. Okay, and it's very easy. It's just touch. So you touch here, and let's say you want to run at a speed of 49. And now the DM100 will be sending a speed of 49 to the dryer panel, and we'll run the dryer at that speed. Okay, so it's a way to run manually if you've got conditions where you don't want to be running in automatic mode. Now the other thing that happens is when you first start up the system, a lot of times it'll come up in what's called local mode. And in local mode, that means the DM100 is not sending a speed to the dryer. That means that you set the speed at the dryer, and because the DM100 doesn't know the speed, it says C dryer when you're in local mode. Okay? So let's go back to automatic mode. And we'll continue along with the menus. So we see here we're drying corn. You have preset values for different products, so you can change products very easily. I'm going to show you later on in this video if these aren't the products that you dry and you want to put other products in, I'll show you how to do that. But for the moment, if we did want to change products, all we would have to do is press one of those and we would change products. Okay. So along the bottom we have some keys here. They're all touch, so let's go through them one by one. History, we get 10-minute averages that are stored and you can scroll through those. There's a little scroll bar here. So if you haven't been at the unit for a bit and you want to see what has happened, it's a very easy way to go back through time and just look at the history. Again, these are in 10-minute averages. Okay. Now, there's also a key here for alarms, and this will show you what alarms have happened, and you can also see if there's any active alarms. Now, at the moment, there aren't any active alarms, but I'll show you what happens if there is one. So if we let's take the temperature, and we'll make that temperature very hot for some reason. And there's a little bit of a delay. And that delay you can set, and I'll show you a little bit later how we can set that delay. And then an alarm happens. The reason for the delay is we don't want nuisance alarms, so if something happens just for 1 second or 2 seconds, we don't want it to set off an alarm. So you have a flashing alarm here, and if we go back into the alarms key, you'll see that there's active alarms here. Alarm history is here, and the active alarms are here. And if we go back to the main screen, if we take this back down again, there we go, we'll go back to normal. Okay, now one of the other buttons here is charts. So we can look at, there's graphs. So if you don't want to look at the 10-minute history in numerical form, you can look at it in chart form. And you can look at the moisture on a chart, and you can look at the flow rate on the chart, or discharge rate on the chart. You can also, by pressing this button, charting options, you can select the range on the graph You can select the time scale, or if you just want to clear the information on the chart, you can do that there as well. Okay, so we're going to go back to home. And the calibration key we're going to talk about in the calibration video, so we'll leave that for later. Now, the main menu that gets us into the deeper menu, deeper keys, is here. Auto mode setup, again, we're going to use that in the video on state logic control. Change product we've already done, but we'll just take a look. It's the same thing. It's the same options you have from the main screen, so there's two different ways you can do that. We can set alarm limits. So before we saw that once the temperature got over 120 degrees, we set off a flashing alarm. So this is where you can set your alarm limits, and some people set them very tight, some people set them a little bit looser. It's all a matter of how you want to be notified if something is unexpected. So you have ideas of what ranges things should happen in, and if they go outside those ranges, you'd like to hear an alarm. Okay? And there'll be an alarm from the unit. You can also set up a remote alarm, and I'll show you shortly where the settings are for that. And basically, it's up to the operator to use these alarms as they like. Okay, we'll go back to the menu. Charting options, again, we've seen that, but it's just another way to get to the same page. Now, the rest of the settings are all under system setup. Now, system setup is password protected. So we go up there. 6853 is the password. All right, so these are the remaining settings for the DM100. And we're going to start with discharge settings. So this is how you set up the communication between the Dryer Master DM100 and your dryer. So when you're in auto mode and you're sending a rate signal, or in manual mode sending a rate signal, we're sending a 0 to 10 volt signal, and you use these numbers here to scale that to how your dryer works. So you want to scale it so that the speed on the DM100 matches the speed on your dryer panel. And you'll just have to play a little bit with the max and min rate scale, and to basically tune it so that you're seeing the same number in both places. You can also set maximum and minimum speeds, and if you set those, the DM100 in auto or manual mode will not go outside that range. Product settings. So I said earlier we can change the names of products. So any of these names you can change very easily. So for example, we've got one here that's canola, and we don't dry canola, but we dry oats. So we can put okay, so now we have a new product list, and any of these are changeable and to whatever you want. When you're entering a new product, the most important number here is the slope number. And this is the multiplier that we use to come up with a moisture reading. In the product manual, there is a chart there that talks about the different slopes we use for different products. Now, the reason we use a different slope for different products is different densities need a different multiplier or different slope. So products that are heavier tend to have a lower slope. Products that are lighter tend to have a higher slope. So for something like oats, which tends to be lighter, we would typically use a slope that's around 7. Okay. If you have any questions when you're setting up a new product, look at that chart, and if you still have questions, just give us a call at the Dryer Master Support Center. We'd be happy to give you some ideas where an initial setting can be. Calibration settings, we're going to look at that in the calibration video. Sensor settings, this is basically a diagnostic page, so you'll very rarely go to this page. But if you're calling in for support, the person on the support center may ask you to go to this page just to read out some information. Alarm setup. Remember I said you can set a delay. So the local time delay is the time from when an alarm condition is reached to the time when the alarm goes beep, beep, beep. And so you can set that whatever you want, and you want to set it a little bit higher so you don't get nuisance alarms. The remote alarm says that you have a remote alarm out maybe in the yard. So if you're not in the room with the DM100, you can still hear an alarm if it goes off. And again, you can set the time delay for that to happen too. And you set it, higher or lower depending on if you're getting nuisance alarms. And we have general settings. In the general settings, the important one, the one you're most likely to use is temperature scale. This will switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius. So depending on which one you want to use, we can do that. The language, at the moment there's English is available. In the future we'll be adding additional languages. Setting the date and time, turning a screensaver on or off, and you can play with those if you want to. Typically those are ones you don't really have to touch much. The systems info, again, is one you're not likely to use, but in the case if there's a software update, this is the page you would go to, and we would send you a file and you would put it on a USB drive, insert it into the bottom of the system, and this is how we can do the update. So again, unlikely to use this, but if you have to, and we'll talk you through basically how to do this if you need to. And output scaling, this is if you want to take the information from the DM100 and output it to a PLC or to a plant-wide system. So you want to take those readings and put them onto a screen somewhere else, and this is the place where you would do the scaling. And anybody doing PLC programming will understand how to do that. And finally, network settings. The DM100 can be put as a node on your network so that you can access it with your smartphone, and you'll be able to see the information with some graphing and other things on your smartphone, so you don't actually have to be at the DM100 in order to get the information. So there's an appendix in the product manual that goes through how to do this. If you have questions, again, you can call us at the support center. And we're going to go back one last thing. There's a little off of the menu. There's a USB tab. We'll just go there quickly. And this is where you can download history. So history is stored in your machine on a micro SD card. So to avoid having to take the micro SD card out, we can just put a USB drive in the bottom of the unit, and there's a little port there labeled USB drive. And on that you can download your history, daily history, monthly history, all your history, or your calibration files. And you can download them to the USB drive. They're in .csv format, so it can go into any spreadsheet. And that way you have a permanent record of what your system has done and what you've dried. Okay, that pretty much wraps up all the major keys of the DryerMaster DM100. And again, I invite you to look at the calibration video and the state logic control video to better understand in total how the system works for you. Again, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to call us at the DryerMaster Support Center, 1-888-318-0009.